Welcome and thanks for your time today, Liz.
Pleasure, David.
Music and dance are obviously a large part of your life, having playing the violin, teaching violin, playing in bands like Beyond Blue and Mendoza Quartet. What is the earliest memory that you have of playing music?
Ooh, gee, that's the earliest memory playing music. Well, I did start off playing the piano first, but I don't know whether I remember that as clearly as actually playing the violin. And the reason that I remember my first experiences playing the violin is that I actually wanted to play the trumpet because that's the instrument that my brother was playing, and I worshipped the ground that my brother walked on. And I was very disappointed when I was told that actually, no, I'm going to play the violin. But the reason was that my piano teacher had already scoped me out to have an ear to play the violin. So, funnily enough, when I was presented with the violin, I did love it. And I think my first memory of actually playing that was being the worst in the group class. And that feeling of like, I suck, and everyone else seems to understand what's going on. So I was seven going on 8. But I didn't understand anything. And that's when I started getting private lessons, which totally accelerated me. I obviously had a different style of learning. So.
And when you mentioned your music teacher understood that the violin would suit you best,
yeah.
How does a music teacher know?
Know that, yeah. So when you learn piano is a good instrument to start with because all of the keys are there, and if the piano's been tuned recently, it's all in tune. Like there's a C, there's a D, E. I don't have perfect pitch, so maybe that wasn't exactly a C, D, E. Sorry for the perfect pitch, people. But you can just learn to play notes straight away and pieces of music that are generally, quite easy. The violin entails a lot of different things. In the right hand, the bow is happening, and if you don't have the bow sound right, that's when you get all the scratchy, squeaky, just lack of control, just horrible sound. The left hand, well, that's like normally on a guitar, you'd have frets. That's where my finger goes, that's where my finger goes, that's where my finger goes. But violin, there's no frets. So how do you know? Well, when you're a beginner, we do put stickers there to give you some sort of like structure. But ultimately, it's about your ears training your fingers to know exactly where to go. Now, I think anyone can be trained in the skill of actually learning how to better hear things and play them back. But there are some people that potentially have the skills slightly better. And maybe when I was playing piano and singing songs with my piano teacher, her name was Kay Hartwig. I love her so much. She was amazing. She probably could just tell that by the way that I would maybe sing back to her or clap back rhythms, that I had good listening skills. For instance, if she sang do, re, mi, I would sing do, re, mi, as opposed to do, re, mi, which a lot of my students who I do teach do. But that's okay because they can still learn how to do it well. And the same with the rhythm. Ta, dee, ti, ta, and then immediately responding with, I got that. Ta, dee, ti, ta. The violin is just an instrument that requires good listening skills. Some instruments you can get away with just doing this. I'm not saying that piano is any easier or any harder, but yeah, there is something about the violin that is quite difficult. And if you don't have that prior, maybe natural thing, it is a lot harder, but it can be learned.
And was there any stage during your musical career where you grabbed a trumpet and gave it a go?
Yes. I don't know whether I ever grabbed my brother's. I was probably worried about the gross things. I ended up being really put off by trumpet players and maybe just trumpets in general because they do this spit thing. They're like kind of playing along and they get all this spit stuck in the valves, and so every minute they're going and it's like this spit just kind of goes on the ground. It's not attractive. So I just don't think that I ever really had, after I started the violin, I was like, that's okay. I think growing up, I love listening to the trumpet. Winston is a guy that plays it, and he plays the beautiful concertos. If you listen to Classic FM long enough, it'll probably come up. But I love listening to it, and maybe that's a time that I go, oh gee, I'd love to be able to hold a trumpet and just work out how to make that sound, but I'm okay not doing that now. And I think that came from just years and years of having to work out how to play a really beautiful sound on the violin. It does take years. And then going, oh, I wonder if I can apply that to other instruments. A lot of that is just like intellect. I need to think about it this way, and just be really motivated as well. Like once you've got the technique, you just kind of practice doing the same thing. And that's what draws me to starting anything new, actually, not just doing a trumpet. But it's that thing of like, oh, gee, I wonder if I could be good at this, within 6 months.
Within your pathway of learning the violin, when did you first come across tango music?
That's a great question. It's a strange thing, but I felt that tango was like always in my soul somehow. But my first real sort of like, oh, this must be tango, is obviously the scene from True Lies that everyone seems to be drawn to tango by. It's the scene Arnold Schwarzenegger and I don't know, some other actress at the time.
No.
Well, at the end of it, Jamie Lee Curtis, his wife, actually dances the tango with him. But it's to Por Una Cabeza. Da 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 da. And it's funny because in the movie they are walking, which essentially is tango, but she's just like dragging her leg, and there's a rose, and that's basically it. And it's like, I thought that was tango, and I thought, well, that's hard and that's amazing. Whereas now I'm like, oh, cool. You just kind of walk and you drag your leg, and then you look really cool. Play some good music, and that's great. So that, I probably watched that when I was, 10. I wonder if I was allowed to watch it then. Maybe 12. I don't know. So that's my first thing of tango, which I thought was tango. Wasn't really. Then my next thing was Piazzolla. So my, exposure to Piazzolla was probably more so at university. So I studied music, and occasionally I would hear other people perform pieces, and my heart would just go, there it is, like that's the music that I want to play. And I'll never forget, I can't remember who was playing it, I just remember the music, and it was Oblivion. It was a cello player was performing it, and with maybe a couple of others in the group, and I loved it straight away. Liebe Tango was another one that classical musicians tend to love playing. So that was what I thought at that point was tango. And then after university, I actually took up ballroom dancing just because I wanted to dance something. And I remember going through all of each week, it was like, we're going to do the jive, then we're going to do the waltz, then we're going to do the cha-cha and the rumba. And I was like, when are we going to get to the tango? And we finally got to the tango, and I was like, yes. There's all this head flicking and all this stuff that really isn't tango at all. And we're, meanwhile, dancing to music that's like MIDI file, just horrid stuff. And sorry for anyone that dances ballroom. Luckily enough, Sammy and Michael were there, who you all know in the tango scene. And they were like, Liz, this isn't tango. You've got to come with us to the real Argentine tango scene. And I was like, oh, okay, well, show me. Like, do they play Piazzolla? And that's when, they took me one night. It was West End at that point, and just walked into this room of these people dancing to this music that was like from the 1930s and 40s, and I was like, is this tango? And at that point, I was more drawn to the dance than the music, which is really interesting. It took me about 4 years to fall in love with real tango music. So now I perform Piazzolla, like in a concert sort of style, and I love Piazzolla. I think I've fallen in love with him all over again. But in terms of that true Argentine dance music that people actually dance to, yeah, that's where my heart is. I love it. I really love my